Parliament will hold a probe into allegations of an insurrection that is set to have precipitated the recent unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. The government is yet to give clarity on the people and reasons behind the public unrest, despite President Cyril Ramaphosa's statement that it was an insurrection. In his weekly letter yesterday, Ramaphosa said there is still much to unearth about the events that took place over the course of the last 2 weeks. National Assembly House Chairperson responsible for committees, Cedric Frolick, joins us virtually to discuss this issue. Chair, thanks very much for joining us on the programme.
Good morning to you, Leanne, and good morning to the viewers.
What made Parliament arrive at the decision to investigate, and how will you ensure openness and proper scrutiny on a matter of public interest like this?
Firstly, Leanne, the visit by the parliamentary committees to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal last week raised more questions than answers. After seeing the devastation that was caused by the looting and the rioting that took place, absolute mayhem, with property being destroyed and lives having been lost, it became evidently clear to us that we require more information. And the parliamentary process allows for committees to do inquiries. And in this instance, after discussing with the House Chairperson in the National Council of Provinces, because they have an important role to play, we have come to a conclusion that it will be important for a joint process between the Committee of Police as well as the relevant committee in the Council of Provinces to start digging a little bit deeper to find out, where does this come from? What has occurred? Why were there lapses? And why are we still sitting with unexplained questions to the questions that ordinary South Africans and also parliamentarians are asking?
And it is a concern, because I think your average South African is sitting in the same position. There are a lot more questions than answers. In fact, there are very few answers at this point in time. So the question is, what exactly will the National Assembly be investigating or applying its mind to in terms of, when it comes to the terms of reference?
Well, the terms of reference are currently being developed. At the end, we have availed the necessary technical and legal resources to the committee, the police committee, as well as the committee in the NCOP. I want to emphasize, it's not only a National Assembly process that will unfold now, it's jointly with the National Council of Provinces, because these events took place in 2 provinces, KZN and Gauteng, and had a major impact on the lives and the livelihoods of the people there. One of the first questions.
All right, let's try and get that connection up. Chair, let me just pause you. We seem to be having a problem with your connection right now. I'm going to ask you to start that from the beginning. We lost you where you say one of the questions that we are going to look at. So perhaps I can ask you to pick it up from there.
Okay. No, thank you, Leanne. One of the questions we will ask is, why did it take so long for security services to respond? We are told by communities in certain instances, and we have seen it also on television, that it took more than 48 hours to see more police on the ground and also to see the deployment of the soldiers. By then, it was absolutely mayhem in the streets of KwaZulu-Natal and also Gauteng. Secondly, was there any intelligence available? Did we have the necessary resources in place to detect that these type of plans, well orchestrated, well executed, are being picked up? And secondly, when that information became available, what preparations was done, 1, to prevent it, but also 2, to immediately dismantle the networks that were there? What is worrying is that, as the President has said, the government is still delving into it, but what is worrying for us is that these networks seem basically, irrespective of the arrests that has taken place, seems basically to be untouched. And that is what the parliamentary process must unearth.
Yeah. What does Parliament know about what happened so far?
Well, the Police Committee, the Joint State Security Committee, as well as the Joint Committee on Defence, received briefings from the various ministers. Some of those briefings, such as that of the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence, took place as events were unfolding. And the Joint Standing Committee of Defence and Police got into it at the beginning of last week. One of the issues that is coming clear from police management is that when the violence started and the looting ignited, they did not have sufficient human resources deployed on the ground. For instance, in our visit to Maponya Mall last week, the station commander in the area said that when the looting started at the Jabulani Mall and also at the Protea Glen shopping center, he went to Maponya Mall. And together with 4 officers, they were expected to protect Maponya Mall. Now, anyone knows what Maponya Mall looks like. It's a massive shopping center. They came under fire from both sides, at the back, where there's from the side where the hostels are located, and also from the front, where other people were gathering. And they were assisted at that stage only by private security. And only hours later was reinforcements possible, because by then the other shopping centers in Soweto was under siege.
So that's the one thing that you do know so far, that there just was not enough capacity on the ground. More than that, everything is still up in the air. There's nothing more that you are aware of.
Well, the police committee is the line function committee.
Yeah.
And part of the processes that they will be embarking on, Leanne, is that I can confirm already the police committee have submitted an application that has been approved to meet this Thursday to consider the letter that myself and the Honourable Nyambi from the NCOP are sending to these committees about the inquiry. But they will also receive then briefings on Friday from the police that deal with a range of issues that the committee has identified. Amongst other, what is the state of readiness of the South African police? What is the impact of restructuring on the South African police services? What exactly happened in the mayhem that ensued 2 weeks ago? And also, they are going to look at another issue that is still there, and I think there's not too much attention being paid on it, and that is just the unrelenting taxi violence in the Western Cape.
All right. As an institution that is supposed to hold the executive to account, what did Parliament think of what transpired among security cluster ministers? I mean, the SSA, the SAPS, the SANDF, the contradictions and the back and forth and the blame game that we saw being played out in the media, I mean, not only locally but internationally. And this has caused absolute embarrassment to the country. What will be done about that?
Well, our initial response to that is that we don't want to add to the confusion that was caused, but to say that it's completely unacceptable for ministers who serve in the same cabinet, in the same security cluster, to contradict each other in public. And public is supposed to have confidence in the security services. And even if there may be internal difficulties that they have, they should be astute enough and politically mature enough to deal with those differences outside of the public eye. What has gone down doesn't bode well for the image of the security services in the country, and drastic action will have to be taken to ensure that that image is restored.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a big problem, but I mean, surely we have to hold those ministers to account. And at the end of the day, who is going to hold those ministers to account? Is it not Parliament's responsibility too?
Absolutely correct. And that is why those ministers will start appearing from this Friday in front of the Portfolio Committee on Police, jointly with the NCOP, and also the Joint Standing Committee on Defence that will be part of that process. So this is an unfolding process. We'll have more detail and specifics available once the committee has determined its terms of reference and also the other key role players that will be called to come and account in front of that committee.
There's also been a call and a lot of people speaking out about the transport issues that were happening. I mean, the trucking industry has been under a threat for a very long time, up until we saw what unfolded during the week of unrest. But, you know, the reality is that the warning signs were there all along. What about the Minister of Transport? What responsibility lies on his shoulders as well?
Leanne, I can also confirm that after having discussed the matter with the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Transport, that committee will be meeting tomorrow, primarily to look at the issues of taxi-related violence in the Western Cape and the antagonism between the different taxi associations. And this is another item that the committee must consider. The trucking industry is critically important to ensure that the supply lines are open in the country, but also accessible to them so that they can deliver much needed supplies between the points of entry, the harbors, the airports, and also to the different businesses that are there. It is an ongoing problem, and the Committee on Transport will be dealing with that matter.
Yeah. So we're hearing, I mean, you've spoken to a lot of the ministers that are going to appear, but the big question, and I think a lot of people would be wanting to know this as well, will President Cyril Ramaphosa also be called to appear before Parliament to answer questions?
The rules of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces allow the committees to call anyone that they think will add value to the work that they will be doing. So there's no exemptions that are being made before even the process has started. It's entirely up to those committees to decide who they want to call so that that information is available.
I mean, if we look at something like the Zondo Commission, if the accession made by Vincent Smith and Dikeledi Bagadzi are anything to go by, the country has heard that Parliament really does not have the necessary teeth to actually act. Why should South Africans now believe that this is actually going to yield any results? Chair, are you able to hear me?
Leanne, can you just repeat the question? The signal where I am is not very good.
Absolutely.
So I've lost the gist of the question.
Sure, let me repeat it for you. You know, from where we've looked at something like the Zondo Commission, from, you know, assertions that were made from Vincent Smith, Dikeledi Bagadzi, the country has heard about Parliament and that does not necessarily have the teeth to act. Why must we believe that this time results will be yielded?
The Speaker of the National Assembly, together with the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, appeared in front of that commission and gave certain undertakings and commitments in terms of the work that Parliament is doing, and that is exactly what we're doing now. The committees will be probing the matter. The reports will be there. Political parties will be able to discuss it, and it will be up to the House to take resolutions on the matter. Suffice to say that one of the commitments that was given was that Parliament will increase its oversight function over the executive and is committed to ensure that it is fully implemented. And that is why even at this early stage, even though there are no reports available on exactly what is happening, we took the position to say that instead of waiting on the executive to supply us with reports, let Parliament undertake its own processes that's in line with its oversight function as encapsulated in the Constitution. It's expected from Parliament to deal with these matters, and we gave that commitment, and that is what we're currently doing.
Chair, you've been the chair of the National Assembly in Parliament all the years of state capture. I mean, what is your view on the oversight role played by Parliament, or, to be honest, the lack thereof? Do you think the institution honestly did its best in protecting the country, its citizens, and the economy from exploitation?
The parliamentary process involves a lot of key political decision makers, Leanne. And as we are on record, and as the Speaker has also indicated with the National Council of Provinces Chairperson, that there was definitely room for improvement. There's also the issue of political will that's important. And for the political will, you need the cooperation of all the different political parties, right from the majority party to the smallest party, to do this. For instance, if I can make an example, in the past, we would have said, send a committee to KZN and Gauteng and see what happened and report back. And that would have basically been the end of that process. However, we have reached the point now to say that, yes, do the fact-finding, come back, but we require more. And that is the change of emphasis that is there.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the political will. And unfortunately, it just appears that that is what's lacking at the moment. And it's the South African citizen that is now being failed by exactly this institution that is there to protect it. And it's a major, major problem. And I think you yourself have just admitted to that.
Well, and I have indicated that where Parliament did not rise up to the expectations that was there. We are in the process, as previously articulated by the presiding officers, to sharpen those tools of oversight, to resource the different committees and members of parliament to be effective. Because in reality, what we have seen also is that once you downsize or cut the financial resources and other resources of an institution that is supposed to oversee the executive, then you have serious shortcomings in your operations. And those are the things that's currently being looked at. Apart from, for instance, the committees in the state security cluster that we're referring to, we are also sending tomorrow the portfolio committee on social development, as well as the portfolio committee on small business development to the same areas to go and look at those specific areas over which those two committees have oversight. So there's definitely a commitment and there's a change in the way that work is being done between the two houses and allow for joint oversight processes to take place, but then to follow it to its natural conclusion.
All right, Chair, just let's wrap up on the topic at hand now. So the exact date, has that been announced as yet for this inquiry to actually start, or are we still awaiting on this, the beginning of Parliament? So when do you expect that this will start?
Leanne, may I just say that initially when I made the comment last week of an inquiry, I said that let's wait for Parliament to reconvene, but then subsequently said, no, we don't have time to wait until the 18th of August. So currently, the technocrats are busy working with the legal services to work on all the technical issues, the terms of reference. And on Thursday, the police committee will meet jointly with our colleagues from the NCOP to consider the matter of the inquiry and also to develop the terms of reference and the way forward. And I'm of the view that this doesn't need to take a year, and you don't need millions to be spent on it. It can be done in a relatively short space of time so that when Parliament reconvene on the 18th of August, there should be at least an interim report or a report available from all these different committees so that the House can start interrogating that report and, if necessary, give the relevant committees further scope to do any work that may be required.
All right, so a matter of urgency, and I think that's how it needs to be dealt with, because we don't have the time at this point to have to wait to see results on this one. So we'll wait on this week, hopefully lots of developments coming out of that. And then when the House resumes on the 18th of August, perhaps that's when we can already see a start date. Chair, thanks for the update on all of this. And we'll stay in touch with you to find out further developments through this week. That, of course, is the National Assembly House Chairperson responsible for committees, Cedric Frolick, talking to us and affirming that Parliament will hold a probe into allegations of an insurrection that is said to have precipitated the rampant acts of looting in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng.